What's up, awesome peeps? Brent McCluskey here with Electrified Reviews, and today we are reviewing the Surface604 Colt electric bike. First, let's roll the B-roll. All right, awesome peeps. So again, this is the Surface604 Colt electric bike. And before we dive into the specs here, I want to talk about just the bike overall itself and the company. So again, this is the Colt. This is the second bike we have reviewed from Surface604. If you haven't seen our other review on the Shred, I'll leave a link right up here on the top here. You can click on that if you want to see that review. But like the Shred, this bike is going to be just an awesome value buy for the components that you get. Surface604 does a really good job of picking and choosing exactly which components to upgrade and really just kind of giving an overall really good value for what you're getting. This bike does come in two frame sizes, I think a small and a medium and a large. Right now this one only comes in one color though, so if you don't like the black and gray kind of scheme here, you might have to hold out for something else. Personally, I think it's a pretty dope color scheme here. They do have a 1-year warranty for this bike, which is also kind of above average. Typically for bikes about this price point, we'll see maybe 3 months, 6 months for a warranty. So having a 1-year comprehensive warranty is kind of cool. It just gives you that feeling of security when you do buy this thing, you know, mail order direct to your home. You don't have a chance to test ride it, and yeah, you got a full year to kind of, if something breaks, they'll replace it for you. Very, very cool. Also, another kind of cool thing about this company here, Surface604, is they do design and engineer their frames in-house in Canada. So they design them locally, and I'm pretty sure they still outsource for construction and manufacturing overseas. But the fact that they design and engineer their frames locally, it gives them more freedom to do what they want with the frame geometry and just the overall design. Again, not something you really see for bikes at this price point. Typically, most companies will just kind of grab a pre-existing frame from overseas and kind of use that. Surface604, they went a different route, so that's really cool. Price point on this is $19.99, starts at $1,999 USD, and as you guys will see here in a minute, I think that's almost undervalued for what you're getting. There's a lot of really cool components here, but let's start back with the motor on this. This is going to be a Bafang 500-watt hub motor right here in the back. It's going to be the same motor that we found on the Shred. Again, if you guys did watch that review. Bafang motors, like we always talk about, we're fans of the Bafang motors for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're efficient, they're effective, and they're affordable. And compared to the Bosches and the Brosas, they're not going to be as smooth, of course. However, they've got a pretty good output of power, especially the torque that we can find on the Bafang motors here. This one has 65 Newton meters of torque, again, 500 watts of nominal output, 750 watts of peak output. But it's a very peppy motor, and it feels particularly peppy with these tires, 26-inch by 2.1-inch tires. So they're not like super thin road tires, but they're also not that thick. And the 26 inches is a little bit smaller than like a 27.5 or 29-inch tires. So it gives that motor kind of a mechanical advantage. So it feels even a little bit more powerful than just a 500-watt motor, which is very, very cool. Now that motor brings this bike up to a top speed of 20 miles per hour, and you can reach that with the pedal assist or with a throttle here, which is going to be on the left-hand side. So some of you guys might be kind of freaking out right now. Why is the throttle on the left? I mean, honestly, the first time I tried to throttle on the left-hand side, I was like, this is wrong. This is supposed to be on the right-hand side, like every motorcycle that's ever come before it. However, I actually really like the fact that the throttle is on the left-hand side for these bikes. And the more I've tested left-hand throttles, I really feel like it makes more sense because it's just really out of the way of the trigger shifters. Because typically, you know, if it was on the right-hand side, it would be right here, and it just kind of messes with the trigger shifter cluster when you're trying to shift gears. So personally, I really like it on the left-hand side. It feels like the right choice for electric bikes, and I have a feeling we might start seeing a lot more of that in the coming years. Now, we talked about the pedal assist, how you can reach 20 miles per hour on the pedal assist. Here's one of the the big upgrade points on this bike, which if this was the only upgrade point, it's gonna be a torque sensor here instead of a cadence sensor. If it was the only upgrade point, I would be like, okay, yeah, but it's still a good deal. But this is just one of the upgrade points that's pretty awesome for this bike. So this is gonna be a torque sensor. You can kind of see it, you know, down there in the bottom bracket. But the torque sensor on this makes for a very smooth, very, very fluid, kind of connected ride. One of my favorite things about torque sensors compared to cadence sensors is the activation and deactivation time of the motor corresponding to when I start and stop pedaling, right? So when I start pedaling on this thing, the motor output, boom, is pretty much instantaneous. When I let off of the pedals, the motor shuts off just as quickly. And that's important because it makes for a ride where it feels like the bike is working with you as opposed to for you. It makes it feel like you're more connected to the bike. Almost makes it feel like it's like the motor's not even there, if that makes sense. And one of the reasons for that, and again, you can only get this on a torque sensor, is the more pressure I put on the cranks, the harder I pedal, the more power I'm getting out of that motor. So when I'm on flat ground, if I'm just going through like little light trails like this, really flat, I mean, I'm not gonna get a whole lot of assistance out of this motor, but whenever I start going up hills or start to really hammer on the pedals, then the motor kind of unleashes its full power. And again, that's different than a cadence sensor, where a cadence sensor, you know, it activates and it's basically just full power depending on what pedal assist level you're in. So really, really huge bonus. I'm just a huge fan of torque sensors. They're fantastic. Now, another cool thing about this is the derailleur. It's gonna be a Shimano Alivio derailleur. And that's also a upgrade point right here. Typically, we'll see Shimano tourney derailleurs on electric bikes, especially at this price point. Now, okay, so derailleurs, I feel like I've got kind of mixed opinions on derailleurs here for electric bikes. Look, it matters to have a better derailleur, but it doesn't matter that much. So a Shimano Alivio compared to a tourney, it's a nice upgrade, but does it matter for a bike like this? I mean, it doesn't matter a whole lot. It's just kind of a nice bonus. One of the biggest advantages I'm gonna get from having a Shimano Alivio derailleur compared to a Shimano tourney is, yeah, it's gonna switch gears, maybe a little bit smoother. It's gonna have a little bit less derailments. But for a city bike like this, where I'm probably not gonna be hammering through the gears that hard, it's not that big of a deal. But again, like it's nice. It's just a nice upgrade to have, and I mean, I appreciate that they threw it on there. So yeah, I'll take it. That's going to be a, I think it's a 9-speed. Yeah, 9-speed derailleur here, 9-speed cassette in the back, and then we got the Shimano Alivio trigger shifters here as well. One trigger shifter, and then another one right here. Let me see if I can get a view of it. Yeah, right underneath right there. So. Yeah, nice trigger shifters, definitely like that compared to the Shimano SIS index trigger shifter, or I guess thumb shifter. It's kind of that big bulky one that we've seen a lot, kind of sits right up here, you know. So this is also, I would say, another upgrade as well. Very much dig that. The battery on this, out of the box, the base model, where it starts at $19.99, that's gonna be the 10.4 amp hour battery here. So we've got a 48 volt system, 10.4 amp hour battery stock. However, you can upgrade it to a 14 amp hour battery, and that's the version we're testing right now. It does have that 14 amp hour battery, 700 watt hours, and it's gonna give a max estimated range of about 45 miles or so. And that's a pretty fair estimate, I think, especially for a bike that's going to be as efficient as this, with the smaller tires or narrower tires. That 500 watt motor is kind of a compromise between super powerful and super efficient. So 45 miles, that seems pretty realistic, and I think you might even get a little bit more range out of this depending on how you ride it, right? Because that's it. With range, it always comes down to just so many factors, right? Rider weight, riding style, like terrain, how hilly is it windy, what's the ground like? So there's a lot of factors that goes into it, but long story short, I think 45 miles is a fair estimate, and that's kind of one of the big, I think, selling points of this bike here. Is this is really like a commuting warrior, in my opinion. It's gonna have that longer commuting range. It's gonna be able to go farther. And I think that's kind of what this is really geared for. Especially you've got this rear rack back here, and it's gonna be integrated into the frame, which is really cool. So you don't have to install it when you get it. It's just one solid piece, connects right to the frame here. That's gonna make this very durable. You can just throw all your gear on that. I mean, you're really not gonna have to worry about it, breaking or bending or whatever. It does have these little kind of pieces right here, so you can throw panniers on this, and you can kind of lock your bags on there, whatever. Yeah, really dig that. Not so bad at all. Back to the battery though, real quick. I do want to say this is a locking removable battery. It also has a USB Type A port on this side right here, so I can pop this piece out and I can use this to charge my accessories on the go. Very nice. It also has a kind of just a little quick indicator So you can see how much juice is left. Kind of hard to see that. Not super bright, but it is there. 4-bar little battery indicator, just a way to quickly check it. To take the battery out, it's just key operated. So you gotta throw the key in there, right here, give it a little quick turn, and then while this key is turned, pop this latch and the battery pops right out. Something else that's kind of cool too is I know this battery works for the Shred, and I'm pretty sure the batteries are compatible with each of the bikes. So that's kind of cool because if I got 2 of these bikes and if I wanted 1 spare battery, I could get 1 spare battery and I could use it for either one of the bikes. So that's very, very cool. I do like that. Or if I had 2 of them and like one of the batteries was dead, but I only wanted to take 1 out, I mean, there's a million different ways you can slice that. But basically, I mean, the batteries are kind of cross-compatible with the different bikes here, which is pretty sweet. Back to the frame real quick. This bike is gonna weigh 55 pounds and it's made of 6061 aluminum alloy. 55 pounds is relatively lightweight. I would say it's kind of maybe an average weight for an electric bike. However, given that it does have a relatively large motor, 500 watts, and it does have this front suspension, it's actually a little bit lighter than average. So that's pretty cool too. And it's gonna be, I think, particularly important for a bike like this, where this is all about commuting. It's all about the range you can get. So shaving off a few pounds, making it a little bit lighter, it does make sense. I think it does help out overall. Now the suspension here, Suntour XCT suspension, about 80 millimeters of travel. This is suspension that's geared for the road. It's geared for urban settings, potholes, less than ideal roadways. It does have preload adjust and lockout here. You can see that on the top, so you can adjust how spongy it is, how hard it is, just adjust the rebound, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, with this suspension, I can take this bike on light trails like this, no problem. Is it an off-road? I mean, can you go off-road? Yeah, sure, you can go a little bit off-road, but it's not really meant for like trail riding. If you guys are looking for like a more serious trail riding bike, I think the Shred is gonna be a better option for you, at least as far as the Surface 604 brand goes. But again, obviously this one is really geared towards the road. It's geared for commuting. It does have integrated lighting as well, which is pretty cool. Got the little kendo light up front. These lights, the kendos, they're fine. They're not super powerful, but they, I say this a lot, and I know some of you guys kind of laugh at it, but this front headlight here, it increases visibility, but it doesn't really do enough to illuminate your path. And what I mean by that is like, look, if I take a flashlight, a dim flashlight, and I point it this way, and there's somebody way out there, they can see my beam coming out of the light, right? From a long way away, but I may not be able to use that beam to really illuminate my path. And that's what I mean by increasing visibility, but not being able to use it to really ride at night. So if you guys plan on commuting at night with this thing, I would suggest probably grabbing an aftermarket headlight that's a little bit brighter, and you can throw it on there. And if it's USB, if you can charge it by USB, you can plug it into the battery, you can get power that way. Or I think there's a USB, yeah, there's also a USB Type A charger on the display, which we'll go over more in a little bit, but you can also plug in an aftermarket light right there as well. This does have a tail light too, which is nice. Just a way to also increase visibility. And you know, really the increasing visibility, that's just a safety factor, and it's just to help it so that you don't get hit by cars at night. And so that's a good thing. I'll take that, I want that, right? Another awesome point for the Surface 604 Colt is going to be the brakes. And this is another one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. It has hydraulic brakes, and if it only had hydraulic brakes as kind of an upgrade point, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's got the hydraulic brakes, it's got the torque sensor, it's got a lot of stuff where it's just kind of like, huh, I'm not really sure how they're offering all this stuff at this price point, but I'm not gonna argue with it, it's a good deal. So the brakes here, they're gonna be Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter calipers, 180 millimeter rotors, front and rear. And that just makes for basically, I wouldn't say, it's almost overpowered for the braking, which is good. That's what I want. I want more than enough power for an electric bike because they go so much faster than an analog bike. So I really, really, really like seeing the hydraulic brakes on this. Also with these hydraulic brakes, it does have motor inhibitors built in. So we'll see this cable that comes out right here. This is the main brake cable for the brakes, and then this little wire right here, oh, let me get the focus back, there we go. This little wire right here is going to be the motor inhibitor. So whenever I depress the brake levers here, if I just squeeze it just a little bit like that, it's gonna instantly cut power to the motor, and that's going to basically ensure that I have the shortest possible stopping distance. Just another safety feature, not even that important for a bike like this that has a torque sensor because that motor cutoff is so quick, but hey, I mean, it's a safety feature. I'll take it. Also, because these are hydraulic brakes here, the brake levers themselves are gonna be adjustable, which means if I want to, I can bring these brake levers in a little bit, like where they naturally sit. Whoops, calm down, bike. Or I can let them out a little bit to just kind of adjust them to make them fit my hand better, or if I'm wearing gloves, riding in the winter, whatever. Trying to think what else we got here on this bike. This saddle is gonna be pretty different than the Shred that we reviewed. This is much more of a relaxed saddle compared to an active one. Celi Royale gel saddle, they're really, really comfortable. Also, it's a hardtail, right? But if you guys did want kind of a smoother full suspension ride, I believe Surface 604 offers the Suntour seat post suspension, which I highly, highly recommend getting. They're just amazing, amazing pieces of gear, and it really helps to smooth out the ride as long as you're in the saddle. You don't have to buy that from Surface 604. You can buy that off of Amazon. You can buy it from Suntour directly. You can get those pretty much anywhere. But those seat post suspensions in particular from Suntour are really, really good. We've used them before. They're very effective. The handlebars here are kind of cool. They're kind of swept back a little bit narrower, just for like a comfy, more upright ride. And then speaking to that upright kind of posture, this stem here is an adjustable angle stem. So I can bring the handlebars up like this if I want to, or I can lower them. Well, that's pretty much as low as it goes. But if I wanted to, I can bring this up, you know, all the way up to basically vertical. And what it's gonna do is gonna change my entire riding posture. It's gonna change it from being more, you know, aerodynamic, more efficient for pedaling, to more upright and relaxed. So just kind of gives you some options for how you want to ride this thing. You know, do you want to really kind of get into the saddle or get out of the saddle and kind of really pedal this thing? And if you got a lot of hills, or if you got more flat ground and you just want that relaxed riding posture, you can kind of do both just by adjusting the handlebars alone, which is very, very cool. One quick more thing I want to talk about here. Really my only gripe with the Surface 604 bikes here is going to be the wire management. Look, the wire management is not bad, okay? First of all, I do like that the wires, they do feed through the bottom tube, which is nice, so it makes it for a pretty clean look overall. However, I would like to see in the future just maybe full wire wrapping on this, you know, just make it super, super clean. Like, why not? The rest of this bike is super clean. And I mean, I know Surface 604 did make some effort to like throw on, you know, these little Velcro pieces to kind of slightly keep them together, but it's not bad. But if I'm being picky, I gotta find some stuff to be picky about this bike, right? Also, one other negative or potential con I will say about this bike is the rear rack. Look, I think it's great that it connects to the frame, because like we talked about, it does make it extremely strong and durable. It's never gonna come off. Those screws will never rattle loose, and it's unlikely that it's going to ever bend or break. However, it does mean, look, I can't ever take that rack off. So if I'm not really thrilled with the way the rack looks on this bike, but I don't want the Shred, you know, because I don't want the bigger tires, I don't need that, whatever, you're kind of stuck with the rack. So, you know, that's the flip side of it being super durable and super strong. One last thing let's talk about before we go over to the control center here. The cover here, the chain guard cover, it's decent. It's pretty nice, actually. It's got a reflective stripe here. Again, increased visibility. It's going to reflect car light or other bicycle, pedestrian light, whatever, really, really well. It's going to help you be seen at night. It also covers the chain here just to, you know, keep the grease off your pants while you're riding, again, which is important for commuting, especially if you're going to work or something. And on that note, it does come with fenders, and these were already installed right out of the box. We did not have to put these on, which is awesome, because putting on fenders can be kind of a pain. And you know, that's one thing actually probably should have talked about at the beginning is unboxing and assembling this bike is pretty easy. I'll leave a link in the description for our unboxing videos if you haven't seen that. But this thing comes almost fully assembled, so the assembly process is really, 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 really easy, which we appreciate a lot. Last thing we'll talk about here before we do go to the ride portion of this is going to be the display. Okay, so this is the Surface 604 branded display right here. Pretty sure this is going to be a Bafang display just with the Surface 604 name on it. I do like these displays. They're very, very bright. They're easy to see in direct sunlight. Their color, yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's green and black, but yeah, it's a nice display here. Independent button pad right here on the left. That's how you kind of change the settings right here. 6 different pedal assist modes in total. We go to 0 all the way up to 5. And of course, it's like every other electric bike, each pedal assist level kind of increases the power output that you can get from the motor. So that's how that works there. As far as display and feedback goes for the display itself, there's quite a bit of information on here. Current speed, battery indicator, and percentage, which is fantastic. Love this. So you can see very precisely how much battery is left. Tripometer, odometer, and if you hit the, I think it's the info button, it'll switch here. Yeah, average speed, time, odometer, max speed, all that stuff. So you got quite a bit of info on here. Another thing I like about these displays in particular is as your speed increases, you got this kind of this dial that ticks up like this, kind of like a speedometer on a car. Just, I don't know, just kind of different ways to read the current speed. So I do like that. And like we talked about, it does have a USB Type A port on here as well, so I can use this display to actually power my accessories on the go. Very sweet stuff, definitely dig that. Man, I'm trying to think of what else we can talk about with this bike here. I don't know, awesome peeps. All I gotta say is, yeah, I mean, we do have high praise for this bike, but I mean, the reality is there's just a lot of good components on this thing and a lot of stuff you just really wouldn't see typically on bikes at this price point. So we have gone over the Surface 604 Colt. I think we've covered everything. Now let's take this bike for a quick test ride. Here we go. All right, awesome peeps. So that is pretty much it for the review of the Surface 604 Colt electric bike right here. In summary, this thing starts at $19.99, which is a really, really good price point for the components that we're getting on this bike. It's a pretty good deal. As far as a commuter goes, this thing is incredibly capable. A few highlights on this bike is it does have a pretty light curb weight at 55 pounds. Again, aluminum alloy frame here. Suntour XCT suspension in the front, 80 millimeters of travel, the Bafang hub motor, 500 watts of power. It's a pretty powerful motor, and of course, because it's Bafang, it does have 65 Newton meters of torque. The range here on this is also pretty fantastic. With that upgraded 14 amp hour battery, we get a max range of about 45 miles. Honestly, you might even get a little bit more depending on what pedal assist mode you're in. This bike is going to work very, very well for people who need a very capable commuter for longer distances. This is going to be a road warrior. It's awesome because it does have a rear rack integrated into the frame, so you can actually stow your stuff there in the back, and it's going to be extra durable like we talked about because it's actually integrated into the frame. So yeah, this is going to be a good commuter, and again, for the price point, you're getting a pretty big bang for your buck. It's kind of like Surface 604's other bikes here. It's almost a little bit undervalued, so you are getting, I think, a really good deal on this, guys. So I hope you are having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.